In this brief video, I just want to focus on the last few verses in John chapter 9. So this will be 9:35 through 41. So it reads, Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, that is the blind man in this story, after he confesses that he believes that Jesus is one to follow. And when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshiped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him said this, heard him say this, and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." All right, really curious few verses here. So, like a good shepherd, that Jesus will talk about here in chapter 10, verses 2 through 5, Jesus goes out to find this man who has been kind of cast out of the synagogue. And he's going to gently help him to lead this man out from the influence of the Pharisees. So here, when Jesus asks the man, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" It's really kind of curious what Jesus meant by this expression. Does the expression Son of Man mean Messiah to certain Jews? This is a hot debate because we don't really have evidence where there's a clear link between the expression Son of Man and a specific messianic figure. Now, of course, there is in the book of Daniel this figure of a Son of Man, and there's, of course, in Daniel the idea of a messianic kingdom coming. But there's not a definitive link between the Son of Man and a messianic figure there or in other pre-Christian Jewish literature to demonstrate that Jews at the time that Jesus lived would have used the expression to mean the Messiah. So it is really curious, what does Jesus mean? Of course, the phrase Son of Man can be used as a circumlocution. In other words, it was used as a way of saying I or me. And so we do, while we certainly have this evidence in the gospel itself, where there are places where Jesus used the Son of Man, and it seems quite clear that Jesus is referring to himself. And we do have post-New Testament Jewish writings where the phrase Son of Man is used, say in some rabbinic discourse, where someone is using that phrase Son of Man to refer to themselves. So it's really quite a curious thing, and if it is used as a circumlocution, then it might be more understandable what Jesus is asking the man. Do you believe in me? Do you believe who I am? And when the man responds, "Who is he?" He's wanting to know who are you? Tell me so that I may believe in him. So all this language is really about belief in Jesus. Or if maybe Jesus is using the phrase Son of Man to talk about the eschatological figure who is supposed to come at the end of the age. And if that is the case, then he's asking the man, do you believe in a figure who is going to come at the end of the age and bring vindication to the righteous and vengeance to the wicked? Does he believe in that person? And so maybe the blind man is now asking for Jesus to help him understand who that person might be, or who that figure might be, to believe in him. But it's very hard to imagine that the author is thinking about anybody else except for Jesus, and it certainly is made explicit in verse 37 when Jesus says, "You have now seen him," because of course the man is now able to see. In fact, he is the one speaking with you. It's a really kind of curious, cryptic kind of way of talking. It's the same kind of way that we see him talking to the woman at the well. Jesus never says anywhere in the Gospels, "I am the Messiah," although we do have in John's Gospel people reporting that Jesus says, "I am the Messiah." But we don't actually have a statement anywhere where he says the exact words, "I am the Messiah." But he agrees when people make that identification of him, such as in the case of the woman at the well. And he seems to accept as well this identification with the Son of Man. The man then worshipped him. Apologize there that my Greek font didn't come out. But the man worshipped him. The Greek word that's used here is proskuneo. And this word means to bow down, to show reverence. And so he says, "Lord, I believe." So this idea of addressing Jesus as Lord and prostrating down. Now, it's oftentimes interpreted or rendered or translated, I should say, as worshipped. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing, whether or not this man worshipped Jesus. Certainly in the sense, because a Jew knows that they can't worship anybody but God. So is this guy actually worshiping Jesus? Now, the early Christians, or in John's community, they, of course, are worshiping Jesus. They're engaged in worship of Jesus. But maybe this man's action then is seen as, foreshadowing the worship that will be directed towards Jesus in Christian assemblies. But maybe at this time, what the man would probably be doing is showing reverence to Jesus by bowing down to him and accepting what Jesus claims about himself, that he is the Son of Man. By arrogantly presuming they have spiritual vision, saying, "What, are we blind too?" It's more rhetorical. They don't believe that they are blind. They believe that they, spiritually blind. They believe that they can see who God is. They have this knowledge of who God is. But for Jesus, they are condemning themselves for not seeing who Jesus is. So in that sense, they are blind. So the real result of sin. So this whole episode in John 9 begins with the question about sin. Did the blind man, the disciples see him and they asked, "Did this man sin or his parents?" And it's now going to end with this question about blindness and sin. And so the real result of sin is not physical blindness, but it's a spiritual blindness. And the disciples, so as the disciples and the Pharisees suppose. So that's what one has to watch out for, is if one is engaged in sin, that sin then leads them to a spiritual blindness, and particularly not being able to see clearly who Jesus is. So that's why the Pharisees' guilt is going to remain, because they claim to see, but they don't really see, because they are engaged in sin, in not recognizing or accepting Jesus' identity. So I will leave it there.